Welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on Twitter at Repact. That's Reppact.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on the platform formerly known as Twitter at Cliffy D. And this episode of the Alouettes Flightdeck is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where right now at checkout, if you use the promo code Alouettes Flightdeck 10, you will save 10% off your entire order. Head on over to www.sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save some money, and be sure, as always, to support local.
And don't worry if you've missed an episode of the Alouettes Flightdeck, because we have all of our episodes available in our archive, and that's over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can also follow us on Twitter at AlouettesFLDeck, Facebook over at Alouettes Flightdeck Pod, Instagram, we are doing almost a weekly Flight Deck Live when there is a game happening, or we'll do a post-game show. So you can follow us over at Instagram at Alouettes Flight Deck. You can also follow us on Threads, also at Alouettes Flight Deck. YouTube.com/Alouettes Flight Deck, where you can check out all the archives of all of our live shows. They will be up ASAP after they are done. And if you want, you can also head over to our merch store where you can support us by potentially rocking the Cartoon Bird 56. Head over to teespring.com/stores/Al's Flight Deck.
Well, what a perfect segue, because I've got to give a big shout out to our man Alex over at Piffle Podcast. Sunday, before the game, he tweeted or posted, oh Christ, I don't know what the hell they call it anymore. He put a photo on this platform owned by Elon Musk of himself rocking not only the retro Montreal Alouettes baseball cap, but also wearing the t-shirt of the Cartoon Bird 56. So, and for one day, he said, I'm going to be an Alouettes fan and support you guys. So we definitely appreciate you, Alex. And it worked because, hey, the Alouettes won. Oops, spoiler. So once again, thanks again, Alex, for everything. Definitely appreciate you supporting us. And, folks, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Piffles podcast, by all means do so. They do great work, showing the love for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and definitely give them a listen. It's always good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the Alouettes came into this game on a 3-game losing streak. Considering how strong the Eastern Division seems to be as of late, so this was a game that the Alouettes really needed to win to get themselves back to 500 and back into sole possession of second place behind the undefeated Argonauts. And they did just that, Cliff. They came away with a 25-18 win. It wasn't without its interesting storyline, and we're not just talking about the game itself. But again, the Alouettes did come away with a win and was able to equal their record at 3 wins and 3 losses.
Yeah, as I was saying after the game, like this game was bowling shoe ugly. It was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. But you know what, folks? Ugly wins count just as much in the standings. So you know what? You take the W. As you said, the Alouettes are now 3-3 on the season. Sole possession of second place because, yes, the Ottawa Red Blacks and the Hamilton Tiger Cats also have 3 wins, but they both have 4 losses. So, as a result, the Alouettes back in second place, and the Toronto Argonauts are starting to slowly creep away with this division because they have not lost a game yet this season. 6-0 right now. It's incredible. Simply incredible just how the East is shaping up after years of middling to mediocre offerings from the Eastern teams. It's like this is actually starting to shape up to be a very formidable division all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. And as we've joked, we really can't say much about it now, but obviously the infamous C word that's never happened in the Eastern Division could actually happen this year. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But it's interesting. As I said, we'll look more at the crossover once the season starts. Regular season starts winding down. First and foremost, I will say, Cliff, that I was completely wrong. We get there, met a couple of my friends, and I was mentioning to people there in the stadium, and it's just based off of of the potential issue of rain at the time, the day that it was at, the time that it was at too, because remember this, Alouette fans are not used to having night games on a Sunday, and it's been years, 10 plus years since the last time that they had a game at night on a Sunday, a home game on a Sunday night. But you know what, dude? The fans showed up. I was really, really impressed. Whether it was a cause of because they're still hyped for the team itself, or there's also a combination that is because it is a construction holiday here in Quebec. But still, dude, shade under 18,100 fans showed up for this game, and even with that second rain delay that we've had so far this year in Montreal, which I never thought I would ever say, most of them stayed for the entire game.
They made noise. They were boisterous. They were rocking. Like it helps too, because the Alouettes, truthfully, if you love defensive football, this was the game for you. Both teams definitely turned in a very solid defensive performance, but offensively, there was really, really not much to write home about. If you like field goals, this was definitely your game, because both David Cote and Rene Paredes each kicked 6 field goals.
Yeah, and I think it was one shy of the CFL record, if I'm not mistaken, for combined field goals in a game.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Cote unfortunately missed the field goal. So these two teams could have tied that record had Cote had made it, but unfortunately, he bricked one of his 7 field goal attempts. Still 6 for 7. That's still pretty good.
And one extra point too, which could easily cost the Alouettes at the end of the game, but did not.
Boy.
But did not.
No, and my goodness. It's really made for some very interesting football, especially considering the fact that, as we said, the only touchdown that was scored was as a result of a pick 6 by the Alouettes.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to talk about this, because the provider of said pick 6 is someone who we've been pretty hard on, honestly, over the past couple of weeks. But man, I don't know what the hell Kabion Ento did on his bye week. I don't know what side of whose bed he woke up on, but my God, this is not the same Kabion Ento we've been seeing for weeks now. Like this dude came out to play, and he played like he has something to prove, and maybe he did. Maybe deep down he's been hearing, the whispers and idiots like us talking junk about him. And again, I won't say junk necessarily, because we want him to succeed. We want everyone on the Alouettes to succeed, but we got to call it as we see it. Kabion Ento was not playing his best football the past few weeks, but this past Sunday, holy geez, did he ever come alive. And not only did he score that pick 6, just read the mail from Jake Mayer and just took it all the way to the house, but even his tackling was on point. He was aggressive. He got in everybody's face. He played with purpose. He looked absolutely outstanding. So I don't know what the hell he did during his bye week. I don't know what he ate before the game on Sunday. I don't know. Whatever it is that he did, I sincerely hope he keeps on doing it, because my goodness, what a turnaround. What a 180 from what we saw over the past few weeks.
Yeah, no kidding. And one thing, and I'm surprised that you and I didn't notice it when we saw the depth charts this week, is that he actually switched sides. So something about switching sides, maybe it was who he was going up against, but I completely agree with you, dude. Batted balls, went for everything. I think he could have had he was close to another interception, but I think it was just too far away from him. But the pick 6 for Ento in the second quarter, man. It was a no-brainer. You saw the pass come from Jake Mayer, and you knew right away it was hanging up in the air just a touch too long, and then as we just said, pick 6, touchdown.
The funny thing is too, Sean Lemon, the new acquisition, Sean Lemon, made his presence felt almost immediately, because he pretty much got in Mayer's grill and was trying to distract him or cause him to do something a little bit different, and that probably helped the cause as well, as far as Ento's pick 6, because Yeah, as you said, the ball hung in the air just a little too much. But again, credit to Kabion Ento. He jumped the route. He read it perfectly, untouched. And I still remember you and I in the stands. I thought we're like, oh crap, pick, pick, and then a touchdown. I'm like, oh my god. You asked me like, who was it? Kabion effing Ento. Like what?
Yeah.
And, like we're in disbelief. Like, holy cow, Kabion Ento, the boy nobody loved, is now all of a sudden scoring touchdowns.
Hey, I guess, I guess for players, Cliff, again, if it's as simple as just switching sides, why not? Why not? So
Well,
again,
this had to be something that Noel Thorpe had seen perhaps in practice,
mm-hmm.
or just look like how when you think about how badly he got the break speed off of him versus the Argonauts. I mean, he was torched for three of those touchdowns were essentially against him. And I have to wonder if Noel Thorpe just looked at him like, you know what? Why don't we try something a little bit different with this kid? And yeah, switched him to the other side, and clearly it worked. I don't know what else it was other than the simple fact that Ento probably realizes like, okay, this has got to stop, or whatever I'm doing before hasn't been working. So yeah, try something different, and sure enough, I mean, he looked like a completely different player, like 100%.
Yeah.
And we talked about this over the last couple of weeks too, about how certain players, it takes them a while to find their way. Now, I'm not saying that, like this, I'm hoping this isn't just a one-off when it comes to Ento. I hope this is the start of what it was when Darius Pickett switched positions and started playing much better, or when Wesley Sutton got his act together and became one of the premier players on this defense. Maybe this was the turning point, if you will, for the season for Kabion Ento. I sincerely hope so, because my goodness, like, it was so exciting to see him flourish the way he did, and to his credit, was actually chosen by Pro Football Focus as one of the CFL's Players of the Week.
Yep, exactly. A Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, it's considering what we've seen recently with our defensive guys who are either been placed on the 6th game or whatnot. It is good to see these guys step up. And yes, we had been tough on them, which I think everybody in local media had done in Montreal, because it's, unfortunately with football, it's what have you done for me lately? And, after the game versus Toronto, he was able to regroup, had that bye week, as you said, and he did something. So, but the Owls didn't come they come away completely unscathed, but we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, because that could be huge implications for the upcoming game this week versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Cliff. But Cody Fajardo, mediocre numbers, 16 to 29 for only 158 yards, no interceptions, no TDs. I think one of the things that most people forget about is that, after seeing some of the highlights of the game itself, is that Cody got a helmet to his throwing arm. And you could, I think, in one of the things you could say, I think they had on the TSN thing, they had him mic'd up, and you could see. I'm wondering if there was either some bruising that caused him not being able to throw the ball a little bit more than he could, or just the hit itself, caused some issues in the second half. Obviously, having to sit for 37 minutes total. I think 15 plus 22 for the delay. So maybe it seized up. Maybe it you know what I mean? So maybe that, again, mediocre numbers, but he was helped. First half, what a great first half by William Stanback, though, Cliff. I mean, I think he had 53 yards in the first half alone, ripped off a couple of long runs, one for 25, but he ended up the game 15 for 86, an average of 5.7. That's the William Stanback that we've been come to love and come to see.
It was, again, running with purpose again, and you love to see it. I mean, if you're a William Stanback fan, and if you're not, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, you absolutely love to see William Stanback running with a purpose. And he wants, again, as we said, this is his contract year. He wants to show out. He wants to prove that he is definitely one of the elite running backs in this league, and wants to be paid like that as well. But you got to earn it. You got to go out. You got to ball out every single opportunity you get, and that's exactly what William Stanback's been doing the past couple of weeks. Is just putting his shoulder down, churning those legs, and man, he's almost. I won't say he's AJ Ouellette tough to stop, but he's pretty much in that same category as far as being difficult to take down. But my goodness, I mean, William Stanback definitely was outstanding, and he was also nominated as Player of the Game, which I was very surprised about. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be because I mean I definitely would have given it to Ento 100%, but I mean William Stanback definitely without question is someone that has a lot to prove and is doing exactly that. Like he is. If there's any critics of his out there right now, they are definitely being silenced because he is definitely coming to play each and every game, and truly looking to prove that hey, I belong in the conversation as far as one of the premier running backs in this league.
Yeah, and looking at our wide receiver core, as I said, it was only 158 yards for Cody this week. KJG had 71 yards. He did lead the team on 5 receptions. Austin Mack only had 3 for 37. Stanback,
3 very nice.
Yeah,
his catches were very nice though.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
I will say that.
Yeah, Stanback had 18 yards on 3 catches. Hergy Mayal had a 1 catch for 11. The returning Tyson Philpott only had 1 target, but as it was stated post game, he really he's only had 1 practice with Cody Fajardo because of all the time that he has been hurt, through training camp and up till now. So that can get only better. Tyler Snead, who's coming off a career game versus Toronto, only had 1 catch for 5 yards, but we have more weapons out there now. Again, as I stated, that we didn't come away unscathed. I want to know your first thoughts, though, Cliff, on what I mentioned about Fajardo. Do you think I'm pretty spot on? Do you think that hit in the first quarter? That first half made an issue, gave him issues in the second half?
There was at least a couple of throws that he made that should have been touchdown catch and runs, but I don't know if it was just a matter of the receiver didn't quite have the control of the ball, or if he just didn't have quite that zip on it. So yeah, he would never admit it. And even after we spoke to him post game, like he admitted there's a lot of stuff to get cleaned up. Like I don't know if he was just trying to kind of cushion the blow of it, but just a simple because I mean his hand seemed okay. I mean he was able to sign autographs and shake hands and all that with no issues, but. Yeah, maybe it was just during the game itself. Maybe the adrenaline had finally started kicking in, but maybe it was just too late at that point. It's hard to say, but I can't help but wonder if maybe like that throwing hand of his maybe was affected just a little bit, especially with, as you said, the weather delay, because this happened during halftime. So I mean, you're already in the dressing room for halftime. I think you're stuck in there even longer. I mean that gives injuries like that. All of a sudden you start feeling it and like, oh, okay, things are starting to tense up. Things are starting to tighten just a little bit. And, what else can you do at that point? I mean, it's tough, but I mean, this is where you rely on your running backs. You rely on your William Stanbacks, your Jeshua Nantuis, and, you find ways to move the ball, not necessarily on your own by running, although Cody did have a couple of nice scrambles to help move the chains. But yeah, I definitely think, it was definitely not Cody. It was definitely not Cody's best performance as a Montreal Alouette. I mean, he still got the win, took care of the ball, did not get picked off. I would say most of his throws were decent, but yeah, I can't help but wonder if the throwing hand getting smacked kind of played a part in why the second half was, as you said, mediocre.
Yeah. Only gave up 1 sack, so props to the O-line on this week, and again, props to the O-line for keeping Cody upright.
Yeah, big time. One big thing that I noticed, the addition now of Jamar McGloster, I hope I'm saying that right, taking over for Landon Rice at tackle, did a very spectacular job as far as I'm concerned. As you said, this O-line only gave up 1 sack, and he seemed to fit. McGloster seemed to fit in pretty well with the rest of the O-line. They did their job. They kept Cody upright for the most part. Gave him the protection. Gave him the opportunity to make space, and also to giving William Stanback a chance to run the way that we expect him to. So yeah, big marks for the offensive line. Definitely a big improvement. Hopefully this is a trend that's going to be starting now, as to trying to reduce the number of sacks, keep it down to 1 or 0 even would be nice too. If you find a way to make sure that Cody Fajardo does not get sacked, even better. But big ups to the offensive line for doing outstanding work. And now going into the defensive line, they were playing with purpose as well. I think the addition to Sean Lemon brought everybody up. Like, it really made everybody else sit up and take notice. Mustafa Johnson, absolutely outstanding. Jamal Davis had a massive sack as well and looked incredible doing it. I mean, man, I mean that's the thing is, like, games like this are won and lost in the trenches, and both the offensive line and the defensive line for the Alouettes looked outstanding. They really did their job. They really caused havoc where it needed to be, and just both lines played absolutely outstanding football.
Yeah, that's true. Now, heading back to what we were talking about before, how the Alouettes did not come away unscathed. Obviously, it seems that Fajardo seems to be doing okay. Obviously, with the first day today, as we're taping, the Alouettes have their first practice of the week. And with it being a short week, they're only going to get two official days of practice over at the Annex Field over at the Olympic Stadium. We found out, and we didn't really notice it. I'd have to go back and watch, but we did find out two things happened to KJG. Not only did he he got whacked on his on his arm by a helmet, but then there's something that we noticed, and I think I now know where it was, is he dislocated a finger. And then we know that once something is dislocated, obviously you want to put it back into place, but it has to stay in place. So it looks like this week that we're most likely going to be without KJG at wide receiver, so he can mend. So it's tough, as I said. Now we're going to be replacing one of our top two receivers. It's going to be curious to know who's going to step up, but. Thoughts on the injury front when it comes to the Alouettes, because there was obviously another big one that was announced today as somebody else it's not official yet, but we also did lose somebody else big too, didn't we?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Najee Murray, who had been playing very outstanding football this year as well. A big part of why this defense plays the way they do is because Najee Murray is out there. Unfortunately, suffered a torn pectoral muscle and is pretty well out for the rest of the season, which is so unfortunate because he's a guy that I've been a big believer in for many years now. Was really coming into form over the past couple of years. He was also hit with the injury bug a bit last year, so he didn't get a chance to do everything he wanted to do, but I thought this year was going to be like where you were really going to see him shine. And he'd been doing a lot of the little things this year. Like you didn't hear his name a whole lot, but I mean, as far as being a leader on the field, you saw a lot of that. You saw him taking guys like the guys like the Kabion and the not Deontay Ruffin, but who am I thinking of here? There's another youngster, Cordell Rogers. Guys like that have been looking up to Najee Murray and the Wesley Suttons and following their lead as to how to become professional football players in this league. And losing Najee Murray is beyond tough. My heart hurts for him. I sincerely hope that he comes back from this stronger than ever. I have no doubt in my mind he will, but it's still a tough blow for this Alouettes defense that's been playing extremely well as of late. And, only thing I do is just hope that he heals up and hope that the comeback is going to be even bigger and better than ever. And once again, I've been saying this for the past few weeks now, and it was because Kabion was not playing up to his what we felt he should be doing. But you got to pick up the phone and call Patrick Levels. You got to bring him back, because I'll go ahead and I'll say it. Losing a Najee Murray is tough, but I think if you were to bring Patrick Levels back, I think this offense, or this defense, I should say, runs like there's been no problems. I think he's the perfect plug and play defender that can come in and help make this defense work. So I sincerely hope Danny Machocha, with this news, it's tough. And yes, there are some good young prospects that are going to get their chance to shine now as well, and that's great. But truthfully, I definitely think you got to pick up the phone, call Patrick Levels, bring him back here. You can't give him his number 3, unfortunately, but you'll figure something out. You'll find a way to get him back. Find a way to get him back here, back to being the superstar we expect him to be. And it simply has to be done. Full stop.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's obviously, if they do bring him in, we won't be able to have him play until next week's game versus Saskatchewan. But the Owls are the Owls are still making moves, and it makes me wonder with the guys that they brought in, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit, but the guys that they've brought in, just announced today. I don't know. It makes me wonder if some of these guys are going to be stopgap going forward instead of bringing in Patrick Levels, because it makes me wonder with them being able to sign Sean Lemon though, Cliff. It makes me wonder about the cap situation that the Owls currently are at. So it's maybe
I don't know what Najee was I don't know what Najee was making, but now his money's free.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, it's unfortunate it had to come to that, but I mean that is something to consider. Yes, you're right. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that Sean Lemon was not cheap to bring in, but I mean these are the moves you have to make, and I'm fairly confident too that Patrick Levels would not come cheap either. But I mean, you find a way to make it work. That's the way I look at it. And you're right. Maybe perhaps as I've said, one of these young players that are on the practice roster, they step up. This is their opportunity now to show what they can do. A couple additions were made today as well on the transaction wire, so maybe one of those moves could be a helping hand as well for the Alouettes. I sincerely hope so, because again, you cannot just replace a Najee Murray so easily. Even though I basically more or less said you could with Patrick Levels, but if you don't go that route, then you're going to have to do something. You got to have a plan B. I have no doubt in my mind that Danny Mac has been thinking about this long and hard, and whatever move he makes, he's given me no reason to doubt as far as when it comes to personnel moves go. So all we can do at this point is just hope for the best, and we'll see what happens this Saturday against the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Any last thoughts, Cliff, on the Stampeder game before we move on and talk about the guys that the team signed and what's happening with the practice, the first day of practice, etc.
Well, I got to give the Stampeders a lot of credit. They definitely played hard.
Yeah, Reggie Bagleton. Wow, just wow.
That dude is ridiculous. Like, he is so good. I mean, that one catch he made, like, I honestly thought it was picked. Like, that's like, how in God's name did you catch that in traffic like that? That was just ridiculous. I mean, but again, that just goes to show just how incredible a player he is. I mean, Jake Mayer too. I mean, we talked about this with Danny Austin. Like, will the real Jake Mayer please stand up? Because you saw flashes of brilliance with him, and then you saw those like head scratching throws that he made that ended up becoming picked off, and you're like, I can't make heads or tails of this guy. Like, is he a good quarterback or not? Like, is he good enough? Is he just kind of there? Is he like a stopgap until something better comes along? I really can't say at this point. I can only imagine Stampeder fans too have to be wondering, like, after years of elite quarterbacks, you've got Jake Mayer now, who is not elite, not terrible. He's just mid, quite frankly. I can only wonder what, like, going forward, what it's going to be like, especially now that the Stampeders are now at 2-5, and they've got a pretty tough schedule ahead of them. They've got some pretty tough games coming up, and I don't know how they're going to get off the schneid, but they got to figure something out, and quick. But I mean, Calgary was definitely a formidable foe. They definitely gave Montreal plenty of fits. As I said, able to keep Fajardo from scoring touchdowns and throwing for touchdowns. Their defense too really stepped up and made things happen. And mark my words, folks, this Tommy Lee Lewis guy, my goodness, this guy, I guarantee by the end of the season, regardless of what happens in Calgary, I truly think, as far as a returner goes, he's going to be in that same conversation as the Mario Alfords and the Chandler Worthies. Like, this guy is lightning fast, and I was sure during that last Calgary series that he was going to take that punt and return back to the house. Like, that's how good and how sneaky fast he was. I mean, this guy's the real deal. I mean, regardless of what happens in Calgary, at least Tommy Lee Lewis, that guy is definitely the real deal. So, I mean, there's stuff to work with in Calgary. There's definitely stuff to build on, but they've got a really, really tough road ahead of them. And like like this was a game that Calgary had to have as well, and unfortunately Montreal was just a little bit better than them on this day. So I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. But as far as this contest goes, it was something else. I mean, we had a little bit of everything, Tim. We had weather delays. We had Cirque du Soleil, which unfortunately got moved inside the field house next door to Percival Molson Stadium, and we ended up having to watch it on the big screen, which was good. It was okay, but other than that, yeah, this was definitely a very interesting Sunday evening for us, wouldn't you say?
Oh, very, very much so. And even though there was the weather delay and it was kind of raining, it was just right before we were well, I think before we had to prematurely leave. It just all of a sudden poured, and as everybody saw from our post game flight deck live, the weather wasn't joking. That flash of lightning that we were able to catch on stream and stuff like that, but if you just don't know how wet Cliffy actually was. The dude was just soaked. He was soaked.
Yes, I laughed because like when I left my place, it was
because you underdressed. You really did underdress because you're commenting. You were in shorts and shirt, and it actually turned out to be kind of it needed to be a jean day, kinda. Jeans and just a shirt. But yeah, it wouldn't have mattered for you no matter what.
No, truthfully, and you were smart. You brought an umbrella, and it's not like I don't have one, folks, but I just keep it in the car. I'm like, oh, I don't need this. Everything's great, like as I left my place, but then it just turned on a dime, and yeah, I was just completely drenched, absolutely drenched. I think some of my stuff is just now finally to be completely dried out. So
thank God for
incredible
for recycled boxes that they had at the stadium, right?
They make great cover, folks. Let me tell you, if you don't have one, use what you got. That's what I'm saying here.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, the Owls have brought in some new players. They signed one the other day. I don't have it up in front of me. I don't know if you do, Cliff, but more than just the announcements today that were done by the Alouettes. Who did the Owls announce the other day? I don't think I actually sent it to you, did I? But just here, talk about while I look for it. Talk about the guys that the Alouettes did announce that they picked up today.
Well, adding to the practice roster are Ronnie Blackman, wide receiver from West Georgia. Brody Buck, a linebacker from Northwest Missouri State. No, I got to stop here for a second. Brody Buck. I mean, with a name like that, you're definitely a football player. Either that or you're in like a strongman competition or a professional wrestler or something like that. With a name like Brody Buck, you're definitely like that's as far as I'm concerned, that's a football name right there.
Yes, so, sir. Yes, sir.
Curious to see that. And also too, former Ottawa Red Black Randall Evans, defensive back from Kansas State, has been added to the roster as well. I have to believe this may have had to do with the injury to Najee Murray. Again, as I said, perhaps this is Danny Machoch's solution, as opposed to going out and getting Patrick Levels, would be to bring in Randall Evans. I don't immediately recall how he was when he was with the Red Blacks, but this is someone with CFL experience, and if anyone's going to get the best out of someone, it's definitely going to be Noel Thorpe. So
yeah, maybe this wasn't the former Red Black that we thought the Owls were going to pick up.
Right. I'm just saying. There's another Red. If you want to add former Red Blacks, we've mentioned his name a dozen times already. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, putting it out there into the universe and see what happens. But yeah. So listen, we'll see what happens when it comes to these names.
Yeah. By the way, the one that the Alouettes did, they announced something on Monday. It was they released defensive lineman Kabion Bennett.
Oh yes. Son of Buffalo Bills great Cornelius Bennett, actually. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised because he had a half decent training camp and had been on the practice roster the entire time. Unfortunately, just unable to crack the lineup thus far. But yeah, I guess with the addition of Sean Lemon, certain moves have to be made. Not just Nick Usher, but I guess Kabion Bennett also too had to be showed in the door. So once again, it's football. That's just the way it goes. So
Yeah, exactly. So we're heading into the game this week versus the Tiger Cats. Obviously, it is a short week, 2 practices, as I mentioned earlier before in the show. Alouettes are favored. What? The Alouettes are favored on the road. They are a 2.5-point favorite currently with an over/under of 45.5. You look at today's practice roster, practice / injury list. Not practice roster. Practice list. What do we have? Practice day. Whatever. Seante Evans, obviously, no, we know he's not going to play. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, but 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when it came out, the practice wasn't able to return. KJG, as we mentioned before, Deontay Ruffin with a hip, he did not practice. Najee Murray, obviously, as we're hearing now through the vines. Obviously, we know why he didn't practice today. Avery Williams also did not practice today, Cliff, with an elbow. The plus, I guess we could say, is Sean Jameson. He was limited today. Greg Ellingson was limited. Lawala Ugwak was limited today. And same thing with Austin Mack. So it was 2 knees and 2 ankles there for those last 4 players that I announced. But again, as we found out, it's losing Najee Murray is going to hurt. Probably we'll see how long we're going to be out with KJG, but it's already been announced that by, I think, Montreal's TSN reporter that we're not going to be having KJG this week versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Which is unfortunate because, KGG has just been playing absolutely outstanding football along with Austin Mack. The 2 of them are among the league leaders in receiving yards. Again, exciting things are going to happen there, but once again, this does become the opportunity for Cody Fajardo to focus on the Tyler Sneeds and the Courtney Davises of the lineup. Now with Tyson Philpott back in the mix as well, he's definitely going to be getting some looks. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but, I mean, once again, this is where the young players, when your number gets called, you make the most of the opportunity. And guys like Sneed and Davis are going to have to basically step up for KGG and be that target for Cody Fajardo against Hamilton.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it was Kenzie Lalonde. I keep, obviously trying to remember who our new person is. She's so new. She's so new for us, at least. I was just trying to remember her name. I felt that she should get the props that she was able to break that news. So.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We lost John Liu to his hometown of Winnipeg, which is unfortunate. But yes, Kenzie Lalonde is our TSN Montreal correspondent now. So yeah, she was the one who broke the news essentially of Najee or of KJG being out for the game on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. You were at Hamilton a few weeks ago for the game while I was away on a cruise. Thoughts on being back in Hamilton so soon, quote unquote, so soon? It's funny. 2 different games. This is basically 2 different teams that the Alouettes are going to be, this will be a second team that the Alouettes are going to be meeting this time around.
Yeah, and it's funny because last week, Bo Levi Mitchell made his return to the lineup after being on the 6-game list with an injury. Played not his best game against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Still came away with a W despite all of that, but managed to get himself back on the 6-game list thanks to a fractured ankle, which the play that had happened on was why in God's name he was out there for this play. I struggle to understand the logic behind it. So I was fully expecting Bo Levi to be taking on the Alouettes this coming Saturday, but nope. No Bo Levi Mitchell, no Matthew Schultz. It is going to be Taylor Powell that will be taking on the Alouettes. He does have a win this year. Or no, he doesn't have a win. No, he didn't get the win against Edmonton. That was still technically Schultz who got the win. But he's stepped in relief and has played some pretty solid football. So I don't think Montreal is going to be taking this Tiger Cats team lightly, especially when you consider that they're also in the mix as far as the Eastern Division goes. I mean, it sounds crazy to say, but all four teams are playing pretty decent football and have been shocking a lot of people with their play as of late, including the Alouettes, of course. I mean, the fact that the East has been able to beat the West quite handily this season is nothing short of incredible. So I'm pretty sure the Western teams are glad that these two Eastern foes are going to try to beat the crap out of each other. As far as this game goes, it's not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch, especially now with a lot of these guys for the Alouettes that are out on the injury list. But truthfully, I won't say this is a must-win game either. Like, I thought in a way that the game against Calgary was a must-win in the sense that you had to break that 3-game losing streak. You had to show that you were back and ready to go, and they did. I think the Alouettes managed to accomplish that, and now the idea is to try and put a little bit of distance between yourself and the teams like Ottawa and Hamilton. I mean, Toronto right now is literally running away with this division. I think the game on Saturday, though, is not necessarily a must-win, but definitely, I would say, have to win. And this would be the time because we were ready for Bo Levi Mitchell to be playing. Even though he looked terrible against the Red Blacks, you had to figure, okay, it just took him a little while he was going to find his form again, but ends up injured again, ends up on the 6-game list again. So will we Alouettes fans and supporters see Bo Levi Mitchell play the Alouettes this year? I have absolutely no idea. It's been a crazy season, folks, especially when it comes to quarterback injuries and such. But it's going to be an interesting game this Saturday, no matter who's behind center for either team.
Yeah, it's true, and people need to remember too. The Alouettes are coming into this game, dude. I mean, yeah, sure, they're 3-3. For me, they don't need to get complacent. Just continue to play the football the best football that they can. People need to remember they're going into this game. They're going into this game as the team who has given up the third least amount of points in the CFL. They've only given up 129 points. So,
and credit to that has to go to the defense. I mean, this defense this year has not been perfect. One thing I couldn't help but notice against Calgary, and this is one of the old tricks, if you will, I've seen in a Noel Thorpe defense. If you throw it out to the flats, you'll get a first down every time. We saw a lot of that against Calgary, and it is almost as if Jake Mayer and his receivers kind of knew that, and you saw a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And I can't help but wonder if Hamilton's going to pick up on that as well. And that's something that really needs to. It's something you've become accustomed to seeing in a Noel Thorpe defense, and you kind of hope it changes, but. That is unfortunately something that has to be, I hope, worked on, if nothing else, because Taylor Powell, we don't really know a whole lot about this guy other than, he looked solid coming in relief for Matthew Schultz. But guy was able to, I think his first CFL pass was for a touchdown. So, I mean, guy knows how to score at least. But so once again, Montreal is going to have to definitely bring a lot of pressure. Definitely going to have to get in his kitchen and make him uncomfortable. Again, this is a Hamilton team that is going to be equally motivated as well. They made a trade. They tried to trade Jagger Davis, and he ends up getting back to the trade ends up getting voided. You won't see him in the lineup necessarily, but I mean, this Hamilton team has a lot to prove as well, and. To me, I think that's what's going to make this game very interesting. I'm not predicting a blowout by either team. But essentially, this is a game that both of these teams have to want bad enough, and both teams are just going to have to do what they can, find a way to win. I don't think it's going to be another field goal fiesta like we saw this past Sunday. Points really have to be scored, and this is where I think actually having a Tyler Snead, having a Courtney Davis in the lineup, and of course returning Tyson Philpott. Mm-hmm. I expect these guys to go off. And if Cody's hand is okay and he's able to just rip it, because that was the other thing too. I noticed against Calgary, a lot of the dinks and dunks, a lot of the I almost felt like we were watching Trevor Harris again. And again, this is not a criticism necessarily, but it was just very basic, like very simple stuff. And yeah, you didn't make any mistakes, but once again, you're dinking and dunking your way down the field and settling for field goals. You were very fortunate that Calgary was basically doing the same thing. And I was going to say, you're not going to beat Calgary with field goals. And lo and behold, you did. But I'd say the difference of that game was the pick six. There's no guarantee you're going to get pick six against Hamilton necessarily, but you're not going to beat Hamilton either, solely kicking field goals. So this offense has to get themselves figured out pretty quick. I want to say that hopefully the game against Calgary was just a blip on the radar as far as getting things done offensively, and they'll have a proper game plan going into place against Hamilton. But truth be told, you got to put points on the board, real points on the board.
No, I completely agree with you. And to me, this is a division game, so it does matter. Because if the Owls do win this game, they win the season series versus Hamilton, so it's big. So it's to me it's necessary that the Owls play as well. And I agree with you. They need to score touchdowns. Pull off what you do exactly what you did the last time you were in Hamilton. I'll take that type of game again. Why not? So it's, again, division game. We don't know what, they'll come in. We don't know what's going to happen because obviously you got a huge matchup. We get the Calgary's playing Toronto, so we'll see what happens in that matchup itself. But the Owls can only control what they can control, and only they can control it. So
this truly is battle for second place, because if Hamilton wins, they would go into second place until the Ottawa-Saskatchewan game, because once again, then you'd have I have a feeling Hamilton, or Ottawa, I should say, will handle Saskatchewan, I'd say, fairly easily. I mean, just with the way things are right now in Saskatchewan, I just don't see. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better for the Rough Riders, unfortunately. So right now, yeah, this game I would say is as close to pivotal as you can find for both the Tiger Cats and for the Alouettes. So if Montreal wants to stay in second place and actually become above 500, they got to win. And as you said, they win this game, they win the tiebreaker, they win the season series against the Tiger Cats, and the implications of that can be huge come October, November. So yeah, I'd say this is a fairly important game as well.
Yep, I agree. Obviously, we will be back next week to talk about the game. Stay tuned. We will be scheduling, because, hey, Cliff and I finally figured out how the hell to do it, but we will be scheduling the next Flight Deck Live, so stay tuned for that after the game on Saturday. Other than that, man, it was... as long as you have completely dried out, you didn't prune. How much did you prune? Did you prune a lot? Where your feet had to have been soaked.
Everything was soaked, Tim. I'm telling you, and it was just peeling everything off afterwards. It was just like, if I were to wring it out, I'm sure I would be able to fill a glass. That's just how soaked I was. But
yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
But I mean, listen, it's been wacky weather this year. I mean, and you pointed out too, this is the third game I've been to this year where rain played a factor.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about that first game in Hamilton.
Yep.
It didn't cause any delays, but it definitely rained, and heavy enough. The lightning delay against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Canada Day, there was rain there, and then yes, this past Sunday against Calgary. So, what's with the weather? That's what I want to know. And I won't necessarily blame Marshall Ferguson of TSN, because it seems like every time he does the play-by-play for a game, and he had 2 weather delay games, if you can believe that, this past weekend, because he was on the call for Ottawa and Hamilton at TD Place. They were in a weather delay. Comes to Montreal, the bad weather follows this guy, man. I don't get it. It's just bad luck. And he was also on the call, I think, for the Montreal Winnipeg game. So I don't. He's a great guy, but my goodness, you gotta get this weather thing under control, my man, because this is craziness. As I say, was it once is a mistake, twice is a choice, 3 times is a pattern, something along those lines.
Along those lines, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, just bad weather seems to follow Marsh around, and man, I know he's not doing it on purpose. I have to believe he's not doing it on purpose, but My goodness, like just give this guy a sunny day to, a game on a sunny day to call, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
Something, anything.
yeah. By the way, if those who didn't see the replay, I know you can go see it over on TSN Direct or whatever it's called now, TSN Plus. Props to La Police for his first game doing color commentary. Did a great job. He really did, and it gave a different view. You know how people went kind of bonkers when Romo did his first game and how he was doing his first games over on Fox for the NFL on Fox. A lot of people were
yes.
Sorry, yes. A lot of people were saying it wasn't Romo-like, but they're saying that Paul LaPolice gave the game a different vibe, and that's the best way. Having that what are they calling it? The 25 cam for Touchdown Atlantic. That different view from that 20-story building over in Halifax to La Police doing this. Hey, if they can continue what they're doing and have the viewership that they've had recently, by all means, continue with what you're doing. Just get the stats and now the transaction wire. Get that fixed, okay, CFL?
That may be too big of an ask at this point, because
during the regular season, God forbid.
It almost seems like a game. Like, let's just see how much we can piss off our loyal fans, because you're not going to stop watching games just because you're not getting the stats. But I mean, at the same time, it definitely makes our job as broadcasters and raconteurs just that much more difficult, because we'd like to be able to talk about some of the numbers that these guys are putting up, and you're just simply not giving it to us. And at this point, it almost feels like you're thumbing your nose at, and Randy Ambrosi is still beating that drum about how, it's a work in progress. It's going to be okay. You'll see everything's going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
dude, Grey Cup. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe if we're lucky, by Grey Cup, we'll have some half decent stats to real time stats to work with. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, it's only 4 months away, the Grey Cup. So
yeah, I guess see, and it'll be like, see, I did it. I wasn't lying.
Yeah, look, I'm a genius too.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be back next week, obviously, to talk about the Tiger Cats Owls matchup. And maybe we'll have a little bit more for you. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, you can contact us. You can email me at tim.capper@alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can also email Cliff at cliffd.pine@alouettesflightdeck.ca. Glad you're all dried out there, Cliff. I'm sure we'll both be enjoying the game this weekend, obviously, and we hope you, the fans, do too. And we will speak to you guys next week. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.